Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm XRobbie Rhino, and in today's video we'll be looking at the Object 268 version 5, which is a very popular tank destroyer and a tank destroyer that pretty much I'd say 80% to 90% of the player base have, because it was an earn up in August of last year, and it was also part of the massive tanks reforged, the Blitzkrieg tanks reforged in August of last year, where they buffed a lot of tanks, and surprisingly this tank got a buff and it was already very powerful, and now it's even more powerful. And in my opinion, this is one of the most flexible and sort of user-friendly tank destroyers in the game. It's a premium tier 10 Soviet tank destroyer with a massive 152mm gun that deals 850 alpha damage, and it absolutely slaps. So we'll have a look at what they changed with the tanks reforged and how it affects the playstyle of the tank, or whether it affects it at all. And then we'll discuss what commander and equipment I use, and then we'll have a look at 3 gameplays I have for you in the background. So like I said, this was changed in the massive blitzkrieg of buffs and nerfs to tanks back in August of last year, and the main changes, which I'll put up on screen now for you, were armor changes, and they were actually all armor changes basically, and there's a lot of information there, so I won't reel off everything for you. The things that I want you to take note of basically is the changes to the frontal hull armor. So they changed that from 120mm to 140mm, which means that depending on where you're looking with your gun depression, and whether you're looking down or whether you're facing up to your opponents, you have an effective sort of angling of 250 to 380mm of sort of angled armor on the front of your hull now, depending obviously on where they shoot. You still have the sort of pike nose, those cheeks, on the front of the 268 version 5, but if you move around and use the tank's relatively good mobility, you should be able to bounce quite a few shells by angling and by using your 5 degrees of gun depression. And it's a very good change, but I'm not sure if it needed it. It's just made it even more user friendly and made it even more popular, I think, with players, and you see a lot of them on the battlefield. The next thing to take note of would be the side hull armor changes. So they changed the side hull armor from 90mm to 130mm. And this basically means that if you were side scraping around a corner, there are little cheeks on the side of the 268 version 5 that appear, and they were easy to go through, but now they're not so easy. It basically means that the cheeks are now sort of 200mm or slightly more when you're side scraping, meaning that, you know, some tier 9s and quite a lot of tier 8s might ricochet, they might low roll on their penetration, and you might get some nice bounces with the magical Soviet side armor that tanks used to have, and that's a good buff to this tank. It means that, you know, you don't get sort of penned when you're side scraping as often through the cheeks if you kind of slightly over angle. And the last thing that's to note, which is the biggest change in my opinion, was the changes to the cupola. So it was 160mm, and I think there was a little tiny band of 140mm. And now the whole cupola is now 210mm, and that's the biggest weak point of this tank. And obviously when you are sort of using your gun depression, or it comes off at a weird angle, you might get some lucky ricochets off the cupola. It's not the biggest one in the world to hit, it's still a weak point, and it's what you should go for on the turret. But yeah, you might get some lucky bounces, especially from tier 8. So they've made the armor a lot stronger than what it was. It means that this tank is even more flexible now. It has the gun of a tank destroyer, you know, the mobility of a slower medium tank, and the armor of a sort of a lightly armored heavy tank, if that makes sense. So it's a very flexible tank, and I think that's why it's so popular, along with the fact that it was given away for free to the whole player base. And I do enjoy this tank. I've had a lot of good games in it. As you can see, I 2-mucked it. I really like the skin that was given away. This, I think it's a snake bliskin skin. It's a really nice skin. I think it actually looks really good, and hopefully I'll go for the 3 mucks eventually. Just to note with this gun, I said it's a 152mm gun, and it's got a really nice DPM for dealing such high alpha at 150. It's got a DPM of 2,700 base, and with my commander and equipment setup, I'm looking at 3,638 DPM on a tank destroyer that, it's good mobility, fairly decent armor, and it slaps for 850. The penetration is fantastic, 303 on the standard rounds and a whopping 395 millimeters of penetration on your heat rounds. So if you're struggling, you can just load that heat and you will go through even the thickest armored plates in the game. The shell velocity is quite slow at 760 meters a second on all of the rounds. Even the HE rounds, which have 90 millimeters of penetration for 1,100 alpha damage, so you do have to practice your sort of leading if you're not too good at leading targets. But when you do hit, you slap tanks. And now that they've changed the RNG in World War II back to, I think, what it was, you are rolling for the 850 and even high rolling some of the time, which is really nice. I think base this reload is like 18.5, 18.8 seconds. I've now got a reload of 14 seconds. It was an aim time of 3 seconds base. I've now got a aim time of 2.5 seconds, and it's a 0.36 accuracy when it comes without equipment and a commander. But if you put my commander and equipment in it, I now have a accuracy of 0.32, which is really nice to have on a tank that has a massive 152mm gun. So in terms of my commander and equipment, I'll talk you through that in the next replay whilst we watch the rest of this one. As you can see, we've picked up 5,000 damage, and now make that in 5,900 damage as we put in a shell looking down onto the sort of cheeks of the frontal hull of the machine, and that's a very strong hull. That's a AMX-50B hull, and we battered that straight through the front with the standard penetration, and we end that game with 6.2k damage. And it wasn't too hard to do. We just went to the middle location and shot whenever we were reloaded, and we made some nice silver with this current tier 10 silver op that was going on. So we finished top of that team with 1,424 base experience points. We get 5 kills, and deal 6.2k direct damage. So we'll hop on into the next replay. I'll talk you through my commander and equipment setup, and then we'll talk about how I play this and what I'm doing on the map. So I'll see you there in a bit. So we're now into the second replay of the video, and we're here on Fisherman's Bay, and I'll just quickly talk you through my equipment and my commander setup, and then we'll talk about the gameplay. So in terms of my equipment, I run advanced loader, improved ventilation, and advanced gun laying drive. I've been kind of playing around with the third slot that I use. Advanced gun laying drive is helpful because I don't want to sit out in front of my opponents for too long. But something like a traction system might be more beneficial to this tank to sort of get around a little bit quicker and play this kind of like a hybrid of heavy tank, tank destroyer, and medium tank. But I feel like the mobility is fairly good as it is, and I wanted to improve the gun handling. And on my commander, I run 6th Sense, Born Leader, Rapid Loading, Steady Aim, Rapid Aim, Snapshot, Camouflage Expertise, Silent Driving, and Muffled Shot. And I run a few concealment perks on this tank because it actually has a relatively decent concealment rating for the size profile of this tank. It's a T10's hull with a tank destroyer gun put on it, and with my commander and my equipment setup, I've got a concealment rating of, I think it's 314 meters, which is actually not too bad. You can outspot medium tanks, heavy tanks, and that's kind of all you need to do at some points, because I don't play this tank, and I don't recommend you play this all the time as that sneaky tank destroyer role. You can sort of go to mid ranges and still outspot heavy tanks and medium tanks. And on a map like Fisherman's Bay in the background, you'll see that I've come to this sort of centre ridge on the E line, which I'll take a sort of heavy with good gun depression and good turret armour usually, and try and spot down the south from the spawn that we spawned in on this in this particular game. But I don't have the view range to really do that. However, I do have the camo rating to be able to sort of stay hidden when I do fire, and as you can see there, we're just on the edge of my sort of view range and my concealment here. shooting at the tanks at the distance. So we get a nice shot to start off, nice couple of shots to start off the game, and we're already up to 2.3k damage, and we're just lighting up what the tanks to the left of me are spotting, and that are heading down towards the south from the eastern flank. And this just goes to show how good the accuracy is on this tank when you have a 9-skill commander and you run, you know, the right choice of equipment. For a 152mm gun to be this accurate is quite surprising, actually, and it's very powerful, especially if you are a more experienced player. Obviously you're going to get the most out of this, but it's quite a forgiving tank destroyer for a newer player. It can take a few shots, it can ricochet a few shots. It's not something like a Waffle 100 or a Grill 15, something that, you know, can get penned with HE in the turret, or a FE 4005 that can get penned in the turret. And that shot there on that Jagdpanzer E100 just goes to show how good the accuracy can be. That was a little pixel shot there. I think it's into the cupola or into the side top of the turret there over that ridge line, and that was a really nice shot. And we also hit a blind shot there on that Jagdtiger as well, taking our damage total already to 4.9k damage. And you can see how quickly you can rack up the damage with 850 going in every 14 seconds. And I do have combat rations. I run the combat rations. You might want to take a fire extinguisher perhaps on a tank like this, but I run the combat rations to enhance basically everything a little bit, passively and actively when I choose to use it, but more so for the sort of view range factor and for the DPM factor. When I'm in a sort of tighter engagement and I know I'm going to be firing, I'll enhance my combat rations. And I enhance them here as I'm advancing to see if I can spot or outspot the opponents on that ridge line. And you could see that I spotted that Jagdtiger before he spotted me, and that gave me the opportunity to allow my teammates to take that Jagdtiger out for me as I head up to the 1 and 2 line underneath the guns of my opponents. And I'm going to go in now and try and get a shot straight through the side of that Waffle 100's turret. Wouldn't have a problem penetrating that even with the HE rounds, and that, you know, that makes me think maybe I could run the skill that lets you change your shell type without penalty. I think it's the advanced reloader perk or something like that, or the equipment, sorry. That could be a good choice, because sometimes you might be coming up against a mouse or a Jagdpanzer 100 and you want to fire that heat into the cheeks, which you don't need to, but maybe you want that extra security. Maybe you just want to butter through the top of a IS-7 sort of cheeks from close distance. Or you could change to HE rounds and carry more HE and change when you need to try and increase the damage that you were dealing. But I'm playing it this way at the moment and I'm having a lot of fun. I've made quite a lot of silver with this thing recently, in this tier 10 silver ×2 that was the weekend just gone as this video goes out. And we've already racked up 6.5k direct damage in this replay, and we're going to try and get some more in the last little bits of damage. The game, it's still quite close at this point, but I think we've got the enemies cornered, and I feel like they're gonna drop like flies in a minute. It's just a feeling that I get. Maybe it's something from playing the game for a while, but we'll see how that feeling plays out. So I've lost a few hit points there. That wasn't the smartest move there, but we do manage to get our second shell into that Waffle Panzer IV. Unfortunately, had a bit of a problems with the gun depression, so I'm sort of perching myself up, as you can see, because it's only 5 degrees. I'm perching myself up on this ridge line to enhance my gun depression values, enable me to get my gun down on my opponents that are sitting down this one line. And my hunch was right there. We managed to sort of corner our opponents into that little position there, and that's why you shouldn't just sit at the back in a group sniping. That happens on this map and it happens on Prokhorovka, and then we get a nice snapshot there to finish off WZ Kielin. So we finished MVP in that one with 7.3k damage, making 111,000 silver. A little bit of assistance damage. We get the high caliber, so that's the first class mastery badge. And we get 3 kills as well with 1458 base experience points. So that's it for that replay. I shall head on over now into the third gameplay, which was a phenomenal game I had the other day, and I'll talk you through that one, so see you there shortly. So we're now on Erlenberg in the third and final replay of the video, and this is one of the newly reinstated maps that have been updated in terms of their graphics, and I think this was a bit of a kind of Marmite love and hate relationship in terms of the player base, because it tended to be very campy. People would just camp on either ridgeline, either side of the little river that runs through the centre of this map. But we've spawned in here on the western side, so I'm going to head on down now to the sort of castle area where some tanks like to push up along the southern flank of this map, where their opponents spawn in from where I'm coming in, for where I've spawned in. And fortunately for us, there's a Progetto 65 coming across, and we get a lovely shot in to him at the start of this battle. We track him in place, dealing 933 damage, and yeah, I think the chisel next to us gets a shot in, giving us some assistance. And I've enhanced my combat rations. As you can see there, that enhanced my reload to just shy of 12 seconds, so yeah, about 11.8 second reload, which is absolutely phenomenal for 850 alpha damage. And we're going to push up to these buildings and try and get shots here into these tanks that are trying to reach the castle. And I've done the same thing as the E100 and the mouse down there. You try and get up to this castle area, because you can sort of brawl straight behind the castle. There's kind of a brawling area that used to be, but they changed the spawns, I think, and you can't actually reach the castle anymore in a slower heavy. So if you manage to get into this position that I'm in early in the battle, you're able to spot people crossing the south and sort of pin them in place, and you can shoot them out in an open field, and you're a sitting duck for artillery and that kind of thing. So I've loaded the heat rounds here, as you can see, and I just want to try and guarantee penetrations on the 100 and the mouse there, trying to enhance my damage. I go for a shot here, I think, or I was thinking about going for a shot here, a thin shot on the angled lower plate of the mouse, and even heat might have ricocheted there from that angle, depending on how much he was angling. But we might go again here in a minute as he tries to pull back, and luckily it goes through, and that's just the power of 395 millimeters of heat there going straight through the lower plate of the mouse. That's angling at about 45, sort of 40-degree angle there. You want to be careful when you're firing a mouse's lower plate with heat, especially if he's angling like that, because there's a chance you won't bounce and a chance that your heat shell is just going to be absorbed by the tracks. The lower plate isn't the biggest thing in the world, but it is still frustrating playing the mouse when you're meant to be this massive super heavy tank and things just butter you. Again, I think we've still got the heat loaded here. I'm not worried about spending a few extra credits, and we go through the turret cheeks of the E100 no problem. The heat is just a guarantee that we're going to penetrate the turret cheeks of the E100 unless we hit the mountlet. And we're just getting shot after shot on tanks that are stuck here now behind these buildings, and if they push out, they're going to get shot by us or shot by the tanks that are further down in the sort of C and D2 location on the ridgeline, or they're just going to get peppered by artillery. So as soon as we get these tanks, we're going to be able to push down the southern flank up into the sort of south eastern corner, and hopefully attack their ridgeline on the other side of the map, which is the hardest part of the push, is to push from one side to the other on Erlenberg. But I actually quite enjoy the challenge, and it's a good good map for tank destroyers. Sorry, you got good opportunities to shoot where people are spotting. This map on True Vision is a bit crazy, because you have shots from one sort of ridge to the other, and people don't realise that they are spotted the whole time, and you get free reign at shooting whoever gets spotted. But in World War II, it's a little bit more difficult with the mechanics of the spotting mechanics. But yeah, if you play it right, you can be rewarded, as I will be in this game. And this was probably my last game that I played before making this video in this tank. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. So we get a nice shot into the hull of the Crown Von there. We had the heat loaded still, so that wasn't a problem. The Crown Von's got its turret sideways, and we managed to penetrate for just over 900 damage, taking our total to 5.2k direct damage, 817 assistance. And we're just moving from building to building, trying to advance here. I'm side scraping out in case I get spotted, in the hope that if I do get spotted and get shot at, that the shot will go straight into my tracks. I was thinking about snapping a shot there into the M48. I'm not sure why I didn't. maybe I didn't want to give my location away, but I'm just going to try and advance when the opportunity arises down this flank. And this is what I mean about it being the hardest kind of the hardest push to make on this map, is going from, you know, down the south into the sort of into the southeastern part of the map, or the exact opposite on the other side. I think this is probably, for me, a little bit easier because of the buildings. You have a little dip down there in the river where you can hide lower profile tanks. And now I'm rushing forward. I feel like this is my chance to move forward and get under the gun line of the opponents. That Keelan gets a shot into us, but unfortunately for us, the shots absorb into our tracks. I'm going to try and get re-stealthed and then just go for it. I'm not too sure what else is on the ridgeline at the moment. It's no big tank destroyers, it is just medium, so we snap a shot into the chisel, which gets absorbed by that thing's crazy armour. I'm nearly finished with the contract, so hopefully I'll get a video up on that in the next sort of couple weeks. But as you can see, as we push up here, you light up all of the tanks that are sitting on this ridgeline, and that allows artillery to give you some nice juicy assistance. So that pushed our assistance up to 1730, which is always nice. And this is how you get those massive, you know, high combined damage games, and you get those mastery badges, those marks of excellence. And sometimes you've got to make the aggressive play, and I feel like the game is sort of all but won here, and I'm just trying to push my damage even further than it already is. So we get a shot there, and now we're already reloaded, and I've spotted the piggy, and I don't care about getting more damage. I want to get the artillery out of the game, get the RNG out of the game, because, yeah, they're annoying to come up against. Maybe they're kind of fun to play. I won't let you know my opinions on that just yet. I'll let you like me for a little bit longer. But as we get the artillery out, I'm just going to push around now. This is probably too aggressive. I could have got even more damage than I actually got out of this game. I think if I maybe played it a little bit more safely, because I could have gone for the heavy tank towards the north, but we get a shot into that Keelan as he gets taken out, and unfortunately I was kind of worried that this might be the last shot of the game for me. There's still a 60 TP on sort of half health, so we're going to try and come over and get a shot into the 60 TP, but he backs up. And I'm just trying to get on these ridge lines and get high enough so I can get a shot down onto the hull of the 60 TP, but fortunately he drives out in front of us. We get our final shell of the game into that 60 TP into the side, and we end that game with a nice game, a nice combined damage game. We pick up 7.5k direct damage, 1800 assistance. That's only a first class deal, which shows how well people are playing this tank. We get a sniper badge, high caliber, 1487. I thought I was first place there, wishful thinking. 1487 base experience points, and we make 250,000 silver, as well as blocking 560 damage. So I hope this replay helped a little bit with tips on Erlenberg. I hope that this replay showed you how powerful this tank is, how well it can be played as a kind of hybrid tank destroyer, like slow, medium, slow, heavy tank, or fast heavy I should say, and how flexible it is on the battlefield, and why it's so popular, and why it probably didn't need a buff, but hey ho, make the most of it while you can. And that's it for this video, so I hope you're all having a great week. Thanks as always for the support. More content to be coming in the next few days. I'm currently on holiday, but I've got a video scheduled for Friday, so hopefully you enjoy that one as well. And until next one, I'll see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.